TV packages, thinking about cutting the cord? There are tons of options out there. We're going to present a couple of them to you and then ask, should you maybe keep the cord? Who knows? Coming up on TV Guide Live. Hi everybody, I'm Alex Alvin, managing editor for TVGuide.com. I'm joined by one of the awesome editors from CNET, Ayaz Akhtar. You nodded at awesome.
Yes, I am awesome, so thank you for that.
I'm very excited to have you here today, as well as all of your visual aids. We'll get to those in a second, but as mentioned, we're going to be talking about cutting the cord, getting rid of cable. Is that something you should do? Should you move exclusively to streaming? If you guys have questions about it, and I'm sure you have plenty of questions, that's why you're watching this, you can hit us up, facebook.com/TVGuide or hashtag TVGLive on Twitter. We're going to get to your questions by the end of the show, and Ayaz is an expert on this stuff, so ask him really niche-y things, particularly about price point. He was telling me before the show about price point. He knows everything. But let's jump right into it. I want to talk about this humongous, but actually surprisingly not humongous thing right over here. What is that? What's going on?
It's this doohickey, as we call it in the industry, otherwise known as an antenna. You can use an antenna to get over-the-air HD broadcast network stuff just right from this antenna to your television. Most TVs have TV tuners, like in the old days. If you ever look at a little coax jack, you can attach your antenna right to it, and you can scan for what channels you can get there. You might need something larger than this if you live further away from where the signals are coming from, but this is a great way to get free HD content right to your TV, including a lot of live sports, a lot of live events like the Oscars, Academy Awards, whatever's on broadcast TV.
So I remember back in the day spending so much time with my TV, fiddling with the antenna, moving it back and forth, trying to get the channels to come in because I'm 5,000 years old. This obviously doesn't have those antennas exactly they fiddle with. How does it work?
Well, the thing is, it's semi-directional when it comes to how it receives signals. This one is like an older model, and you can even find ones that are basically like the size of a sheet of paper. If you live somewhere in the city or something like that, if you're near the signals, it'll receive the signals from pretty much wherever. If you're further out, like just far out there, you're going to get something that has kind of this weird bow tie-looking box-shaped antenna. I used to try one a couple years ago when I lived upstate New York, and it's a great way to get signals.
So you don't need a cable subscription or anything like that to use this antenna?
No, it's like the old days where you just had an antenna and signals were coming through the magical air right to it. So yeah, there's no like surprise to it. It's just airwaves. This captures the airwaves, gives you a TV signal.
Now, this is something that I think we're going to keep going back to time and again with all of these devices in every section of the show that we're talking in. But the concern for a lot of people is what they can get. So what channels, generally speaking, can you get with the antenna? Antennas,
you can get the broadcast ones. You're looking at CBS, NBC, Fox, CW, PBS, Telemundo, those kinds of channels that are available for free. So that's usually the first smattering of channels you'll see. But one of the weird things is if you have an antenna that's powerful enough and you do a scan, assuming you have a very sensitive tuner, you can actually get a lot more channels that might be in different areas. Because when I was living upstate, I was getting things from Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So I was having multiple channels for each of the networks. They also have something called multi-channel, so there's 5.1, 5.2. These are lesser known channels, so if you want to watch something that's not as broadcast friendly, some things like those Sunday morning shows that are about tech, I used to watch those like on 4.2, you'll find out that there's more networks than you know over the air.
Yeah, but that said, beyond streaming services like Netflix and Hulu, you're not going to be able to get your AMCs, your FXs, or anything like that, right?
No, you're not getting cable channels through an antenna. You're going to need a cable TV subscription.
Sorry, this isn't a magic device that does magic?
No, not yet. It's not that magical yet. It is an old technology, but one of the cooler things about it, though, is you get some really crisp video. If you really want to watch live sports, the signal you get out of this compared to compressed stuff through cable, it's just night and day if you really like that kind of stuff.
Okay, so if you're not interested in Game of Thrones, not interested in Walking Dead, but you're happy watching CBS, NBC, ABC, etc., this seems like a pretty good option.
Yeah, it's a pretty good option. It's a one-time cost, pretty simple like that. If you want a DVR function, you have to buy something like a TiVo. That does have some pricing problems, I guess. You have a subscription fee for their monthly program guide, but that's still way less than cable.
Yeah, and apropos of the live sports thing, you can watch live sports on the networks, but you're not going to get ESPN, right?
No ESPN. We wish, everyone wishes ESPN was available one way or another without cable, but that's that's one of the few ways you can get it right now.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about if I'm a little piggier and I need to get as many channels, as many options as possible. You have a couple of other visual aids over here, right? Do
Right.
you want to talk about the Roku or the Apple TV first?
We can talk about the Roku first. So this
Let's
is
do
the
it.
Roku streaming stick. It's about $50. Now, what it does, it gives you access to all kinds of apps like Netflix or something like Sling TV, which is sort of like cable, but through the internet. It's a whole other thing. We can talk about that a bit. But you're going to need one of these to be able to get internet content to your television, because without it, you just have nothing. So this is a very cheap device, $50, editor's choice at CNET. It's super fast, actually, and one of the cooler things is you can attach it to the back of the TV, and it doesn't need IR, so you don't have to point at it. So it doesn't lose the connection with the remote. So it's actually a really cool little device.
Oh, interesting. So just not to get too technical about it, but I noticed that's an HDMI, right?
Yes, this is HDMI. Roku does have other options. If you have an older TV, they just came out with a new line of Roku devices. One is called, I think, the Roku Express Plus, and it actually has analog connections. So if you have an older TV with the yellow, white, and red connections, you can attach something like this right to it. So there's a lot more options out there from Roku itself.
Okay, so you mentioned this a little bit before, but the one caveat about something like Roku is you can plug it into any TV, and that's great, but you still have to have a couple of other services, right?
Right. On its own, you can probably find some apps that are free. You can look at YouTube and something like that. But if you want to watch things on Netflix, you're going to have to pay for a Netflix subscription. If you want to watch HBO Now, same kind of thing. It doesn't come with any services on its own.
It does access Sling TV, though, right?
Yeah, the Roku, I believe, can do the Sling TV. I think Apple TV can do as well. Sling TV is pretty much like, it's almost like traditional cable, if you want to think of it that way. I believe it's from the guys at Dish. And you get a small package for about $20 a month. And if you want to get a better package, it'll be $25 per month. If you want to add some sports, $5 or $10. There are all these little add-on packs that can make it a little bit more pricey. You can't pick and choose the channels you're watching, though. You're picking and choosing bundles. So it's sort of like cable if you think of it that way.
And I was watching, I think we're playing a video right now about Sling TV, or we just stopped, there you go. But you can watch it on your phone or your mobile device and TV, but not both at the same time, is that correct?
There is a limitation on how many streams you can do at one time. I think I read up to 3 devices can stream at one time, but I think there's very special instances where that happens. It's not as simple as some other services out there like Netflix. You can pay for 4 streams on 4 devices. They have limitations when it comes to all the networks they're working with.
Gotcha. And the other thing at a space, you also, this is going to sound so silly to say out loud, but you have to have an internet connection, right?
Yeah, so that does matter, internet connection. Even you cut the cord, you're like, I'm through with cable, forget cable. But you still have a cable or something coming to your home that has to be pumping internet. And you need a really good connection to get this downstream video. So the faster your download speed is, the better. If you have like a budget DSL kind of situation, you probably don't want to get rid of your cable yet because the speeds might not be fast enough or the video quality won't be anywhere near as good as you would get on cable.
Yeah, okay, so it seems like the advantage of the Roku is there are way more options. It's super easy to install, literally just plugging into the back, but you're still going to have to be able to set up all your different accounts, your Netflix account, your Hulu account, your Sling TV account, all of these other things, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So there is that setup process, which is the most time consuming, and you have to put in your username and passwords for every single little thing, and that does take some time. And with something like the Roku, they actually have a nice little app, so you can use your phone to type in that information, so you're not stuck with this on-screen keyboard, which can be a nightmare if you're security conscious and have a crazy password. But yeah, that setup thing is something you have to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're going to turn to Apple TV now and talk about that, because that's definitely been one of my frustrations with the early generation Apple TVs. I would sit there searching forever as I click through the Apple TV menu, but they've gotten much better recently.
Yeah, the Apple TV, this is the 4th generation one. You can tell the difference between this and previous editions because this is just fatter and taller. It's a bigger machine, quite honestly. And it runs tvOS, which means it's much more like the iPhone. It's got apps. So you can install all kinds of apps. The old generations, you turn it on and instantly you have a new channel, but you didn't know why or how you could even get it. But this one, it has an app store, so you can get whatever you want. Very powerful. I think it starts at $150 for the 16 gigabyte version. If you want to have a 32 gigabyte version, because you're going to have a lot of apps and games, that costs around $200. It's pretty powerful. You can do searches with the remote. It has a little microphone in it. You can say, like search for Modern Family, and it'll find it on different services, whether it's on Netflix or if it's on Hulu, if it's on iTunes. It'll show you where you can watch that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. It seems like Roku seems really solid. I know it's your guys' pick, but perhaps if you're more familiar with an iPhone, if you're more familiar with a Mac, something like that, this might be a little bit of an easier transition.
It's very, I would say they're both very user-friendly. There's no question about that. When it comes to Apple TV, if you actually have bought movies from iTunes, if you like Apple services, you're going to want to use this. If you have Apple Music, you want to use the Apple TV. But Roku is essentially agnostic. It doesn't have its own real service, so they're not really worried about serving you up. Here's our service. Apple sometimes will show you iTunes things, Netflix things. It's a little bit agnostic, but again, you're not going to get certain apps on the Apple TV. You're not going to get access to Amazon. You're not going to get access to Vudu. So if you have those kinds of online video, you're going to want a Roku. So I have both because I have all kinds of movies from all kinds of places because you never know which device can do what.
Right. You have a whole Minority Report thing going on at home, right? Where you're just swiping and grabbing different video images and putting them into your brain.
Sort of. I mean, what I have is an Amazon Echo, so I get to talk to my TV a lot because I have it all triggered together. But yeah, I don't do gestures so much as I do a lot of talking. Go figure.
Gotcha. And we should mention before we move on from the Apple TV, it's the same sort of thing as the Roku, where you're still going to have some sort of internet connection.
Yes, you definitely need an internet connection with this. I believe if you don't connect it to the internet, it's, what's the word for that? Useless. Absolutely useless. I mean, it's a good paperweight, but it's relatively useless without an internet connection because I don't know what else you'd do with it, honestly.
Let's say I am somebody who is very able with setting up all the different accounts for Netflix or Amazon, depending on the device and whatever. Between the two of these, which would you choose?
We actually did an article about this at CNET magazine, and it really boils down to the services you want to use. If you want to use Netflix, both are great. If you want to use Amazon, guess what? You're not getting the Apple TV. If you want to use Vudu, you're not getting the Apple TV. But if you want iTunes, you need the Apple TV. So it's really about what you plan on using. If it's just Netflix you want, the Roku's a real great way to go. If you want to have the flexibility of that, the Roku's really good. But if you want games and you want to be able to have an experience a lot more like your iPhone, Apple TV, way to go.
Gotcha. Now, there's one other option, though, other than these, which is maybe not cutting the cord.
Yeah. So when it comes to cutting the cord, the idea a lot of people have is like, I'm going to save a ton of money. It's going to be great. But when you start buying services like Netflix, Hulu, Sling TV, PlayStation Vue, which is another through the internet cable service, or HBO Now, which costs $15 per month, this stuff starts to add up over time. So the question is, what does it really cost you to keep cable? Now, when you have something like the Sony PlayStation Vue, like I mentioned before, basically cable through your internet, you're not paying the hardware charges per month. You're not paying for like a DVR. You're not paying for anything special. And you can cancel whenever you want. So maybe that's the way to go. But it's really about $50 per month for that. So if you're paying $50 per month extra with your internet already, and your internet might be choked because you're just streaming video, you might go, wait a minute, why am I doing this? It's really, I think, a personal preference when it comes to that. If you are willing to do the math, you might find out it costs you less, but you got to do the math.
Yeah, I think that's something that I keep coming back to personally. I mean, being a TV guide, I have to watch all TV all the time, and that's pretty much what I do.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's a really hard job, you guys. No, we love it. But you look at all of these different services, and you look at, okay, well, Netflix originals are only, of course, on Netflix. So if you want to watch any of the Marvel shows on Netflix, you're going to need Netflix. Or CBS All Access, for example, has a bunch of original shows coming up. I know I'm going to be wanting to watch Star Trek Discovery. A lot of people on our staff are very excited for the Good Wife spinoff, that sort of thing. You're only going to be able to get by getting that service. And all of these things, I guess, work together. So like you're saying, you just got to kind of price it out, right? You have to have a spreadsheet and figure out, is cable in total worth it versus getting all of these services separately?
Yeah, what shows do I watch? What would they cost for a season pass with a certain service? Or do I bother to go with a Sling TV? Is that better? Is PlayStation Vue better? Or maybe an antenna is the way to go. One cost, and maybe I'll just watch less TV. It's a crazy idea. You lose things like, playoff sports. You lose a lot of playoff sports with an antenna.
By the way, don't watch less TV, you guys. Watch more TV and go to tvguide.com for all the great coverage about TV.
That's the other. You can always supplement your television with online streaming. That's another thing. I believe Comcast is working with Netflix, where essentially Netflix is another channel. So you pay $10 per month, and you can easily access that on your box. Because, like you were saying, these shows, and Netflix in particular, they're working more on originals. These shows are as much a draw as anything. So that's why you want these extra services, so you're still tacking on that extra money even if you have a regular cable subscription.
Yeah, I should also mention in a shameless little plug that tvguide.com just launched a streaming section. So if you are wondering if you should cut the cord, if you're wondering, is this a good idea? Are there enough options out there? You can check out selections, editor selections from Netflix, from Hulu, from a couple of other places, and it's expanding all the time. So that's a really good guide. You can take a look at that and figure out, okay, are these things that I want to watch? Are there things just on the streaming services? Is this where I want to put my attention versus, say, the antenna, which is only going to get the broadcast networks?
Yeah, going through a guide like that is super helpful just because you get an idea of what's online. Because if you thought there was way too much on cable television, the internet is just, you can get anything and anything from anyone. So to have a service that actually will curate that, relatively helpful.
Yeah, there we go. Well, cool. We want to get your guys' questions because you probably have a lot of them about how all this works and what you should head towards. Send them to facebook.com/tvguide. You can put them in the comments or hit us up on Twitter, #TVGLive. Let's get to a couple of them now. Ramanda on Facebook asks, I love TiVo. I'm afraid to cut the cord. How can I do it and still record TV?
If you love TiVo and you don't want to cut the cord, you shouldn't. I'm not sure I answered the question entirely. Can you repeat that one more time?
So I love TiVo. I'm
Okay.
afraid to cut the cord. How can I do it and still record TV? So I guess what Ramanda is wondering is, of these options, I mean, with the antenna, you can't record TV unless you're pointing your phone at it and recording it, right?
There's another option. I apologize. I misunderstood the question. You can get an over-the-air TiVo. So you can attach an antenna to a TiVo and be able to record live television, pause live television. Same interface you're used to. I believe it's called the Romeo. You have to double check that. But CNET's got all that information when it comes to what's the best over-the-air DVR. TiVos are really great. We really like those things. And it's a great time to get one because they just got bought by another company.
Yeah. All right. I think we're running low on time, so we're going to do one more question. Rose on Facebook asks, should I throw my rabbit ears away?
If they are legit rabbit ears, wear them all day you want to. But if they're for receiving HD signals and those kinds of things, there's a chance they might still work when it comes to getting over-the-air signals. It just, again, it depends how far away you are from the broadcast towers. If you're in the city and that's where the towers are, the rabbit ears might actually work. Might not be the best solution, but you could still use it.
Yeah. All right. Well, so it sounds like, just to kind of sum up here a little bit, there are a lot of options out there. There are a lot of different ways that you can cut the cord, but ultimately you're still going to have some sort of cord almost no matter what, except for this antenna option, right?
Well, you're going to have the actual coax cord. But yes, there's a cord. You don't want to cut this cord. You're going to need it.
Basically, don't go around your house cutting cords, guys. That's all.
That's safe. Yeah, it's metaphorical cutting.
Exactly. Ayaz, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. Definitely, you guys go to CNET, where they have a ridiculous amount of information about all of this, as well as options and the new, more breaking, cutting-edge options all the time. And you guys, thanks for tuning in to TV Guide Live. The world of TV is very complicated. We'll guide you through it. See you next time.